especially Ghanaians, didn't like to seek information by themselves. But now that you people have decided to learn, we will continue to provide you with information that can preserve your history forever. After watching this documentary, you will understand why people say Ghana has never gotten such a unique leader after Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown.
And so last Saturday, all was judged ready for a formal inauguration, with young pioneers, acolytes of the new Ghana, and chiefs, cheerfully meaningless relics of the old Ghana, but adding solemnity to the moment of national self-congratulation. And finally, Dr. Nkrumah himself, Osagefo the President, in vice-regal motorcar and sunny mood.
Even though the video is long, but you will never regret watching this historical video. Most of the clips in this video, you will never see them again till you leave this world. Save them for and show them to the younger generations.
In 1915, a gorge down south of the River Volta was discovered to offer a potential for a hydroelectric dam by geologist Sir Albert Ernest Kitson. The realization of the concept for the dam following its discovery went through many challenges and threats.
Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world of contradictions. These contradictions, however, keep the world going. Let me explain what I mean.
Thankfully, after many years of research and debates on its viability, in 1961, the hope for its realization was brought to life by the elected president of independent Ghana, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who adopted the Volta River hydropower project to grandly represent the beginning of Ghana's new and growing economy. And today, the Akosombo Dam is one of the most important landmarks and self-sustained projects in the history of Ghana. The approved plan was the construction of a dam at Agena, whose resulting lake formation behind the dam would be the largest man-made lake in the world. The lake, aside offering electricity, was to bring with it many benefits, such as large-scale agriculture, including fish farming, river transport, and tourism.
This was his dam. He'd borrowed the money, approved the plans, all but built it. Problems were for another day. Budget day, in point of fact, in a fortnight's time, when Ghanaians will learn that they're drastically overspent. But not on the dam, on other, less easily justifiable projects. The dam will pay for itself by the sale of power.
Because a dam is not simply just a dam for producing power. It represents for us a very important symbol of visioning and the faith in the Ghanaian talent. We can do it.
To share this history, we will meet to Mr. Kobla Kalichi, a distinguished government agent who got involved in the dam project in 1961 when VRA was formed. The story of a hydroelectric dam in the Gold Coast itself begins in 1949, when the Gold Coast government commissioned a British firm of consulting engineers, Sir William Halcrow and Partners, to examine a proposed power scheme and report on the wider aspects of the development of the Volta River Basin in respect of health, navigation and communications. The resulting report was published in 1951.
The port should be established at Tema instead of at Ada, for more economic reasons. They shifted the bauxite aluminium production to Tema. This was accepted by the Gold Coast government, and so they proceeded immediately to build Tema. This whole package was estimated at £144 million, but it was to be financed partly by the Gold Coast government up to about 30%, and then the British government about 38%, and then the aluminium interests about 32%.
To win the the support of the Gold Coast people and the international communities on the Volta River project, a special mobile exhibition was mounted for a period of 2 years.
I think most people couldn't figure out what the whole thing was all about, except that they were going to get electricity. But none of them, I think, could picture, including myself. I hadn't seen a rock-filled dam that size before in my life.
In 1953, a Volta River Preparatory Commission was established. Even though the commission found the project economically feasible and technically sound, the proposed budget of £230 million required to cover the cost of the dam and power station installation at Agena, the opening up of the bauxite mines, and a complete plant for producing aluminium from bauxite at Pong looked impossible to raise.
It made the British government and the aluminium companies no longer that much interested.
And of course, Akosombo was his passion. You see, his background was having lived in the United States for a number of years, apart from studying there. He had the exposure, and he had visited some of these sites in the US, and he knew what it was all about. This is why when he came back, he had this passion. But obviously, if you didn't have cheap electricity to distribute, to industries and so on, you couldn't grow the country.
The Gogo to be played on all occasions.
Ghana, as a young and independent country, could not raise the entire amount from its own national purse.
What is important for you to know is that Ghana undertook to finance 50% of the cost of Akosombo from its own budgetary resources.
In 1958, Dr. Nkrumah, on an official visit to the United States of America, used the opportunity to discuss the importance of the project with President Eisenhower. By the end of Dr. Nkrumah's visit, a US firm of consulting engineers, the Henry J. Kaiser Company, had been signed by Ghana and the United States to undertake reassessment of the engineering aspect of the project and cost. Prime Minister Nkrumah in April 1961 moved Parliament to pass the Volta River Development Act, establishing Volta River Authority, VRA, as a statutory corporation. VRA's mandate was to plan and execute the development of the Volta River, oversee the construction and operation of the dam, power station and transmission system, be responsible for the 3,275 square mile lake behind the dam, and develop the lake for fishing, transport and communication, as well as providing health and welfare services to the people along the lake.
Interestingly enough, the Americans were appointed, Kaiser engineers, as the consultants. So they actually did the design of the whole project.
Once the contract had been awarded, the next task was to recruit the workforce that will assist with the construction. Fortunately, at that time there was a good supply of quality workforce. According to Mr. Clarence Kofi, the workers needed were laborers, drivers, and caterpillar operators. Most of these people had previously worked on the Tema Harbor project. The magnitude of the project prestige also excited the locals within the surrounding communities, who lobbied for a share in the manual workforce being recruited at that time. By the time construction had commenced, the Akosombo town had been fairly developed with residential facilities for the different levels of workforce working on the site at that time. This is a footage of some of the white construction workers having fun after work. They did this quite often during the project. With so many Italian constructors on the site, it was not surprising to have had Cardinal Giovanni Mantini, who later became Pope, Paul VI visiting Akosombo in 1962 to open the first major monument of the town, the St. Barbara Catholic Church. When Pope Paul VI visited the site, he was shocked to have seen people from different parts of the world working on only one project, and he was quoted saying, "Volta River Project was a monument of nations working together, a sign of peace and progress." Look at the church building carefully. When the project started, the workers started facing some challenges, sicknesses, and unusual death. So the Italian contractors invited Pope Paul to come and pray for them so that those challenges will be overcome. His presence was to drive the bad spirits away, and they used 21 days to put up a church building to please their spiritual leader and God Almighty. They thought it wise to position the church in such a way that it would face the site like God looking over the dam. And they made a cross in front of the chapel to be a sign of mercies of God.
Right down to the dam, it will hit it perpendicularly. So it has some spiritual significance, spiritual importance.
On the 23rd of January 1962, Osagefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, President of the Republic of Ghana and the Chairman of the Volta River Authority, broke ground to mark the official commencement of the construction of the Akosombo hydroelectric dam. The lake that would form behind the dam was to cover 8,482 square kilometers and become the largest man-made lake in the world. The formation of this lake unfortunately was estimated to submerge 740 villages and displace about 80,000 people. VRA had anticipated these effects and had taken steps to find ways of minimizing the disruptive effect on these communities.
At this point, you will know how wise Nkrumah was. He knew the project would displace many villagers, so he formed a committee to solve the resettlement issues temporarily. They gave everyone a place to sleep and some amount of money. That was just for the meantime, so that in 1969 they would start building new towns for them. This man, Erasmus, was in charge of the resettlement.
This I did. I set up a resettlement organization.
The task of preparing the communities that were to be displaced and the selection of a suitable new location to move them to was a tough job, which required the involvement of the leaders of the local communities, social workers, as well as Volta River Authority, with the support of the government.
Look at this Queen Mother. She is the one you see in this picture. She was very young in 1962. Her uncle was the king who gave out the land.
To the area. I remember very well at that time they used a canoe to cross the river.
Look at how kids played those days. The houses had no walls, so you could go to all your friends' house. By now, most of them are grandfathers. Now look at this man was the pilot who was flying the helicopter to search for those people who were displaced by the project. At that time, despite their differences, the government really loved the people, and the people loved their government. Everyone was concerned about the other. See him in this picture with other Italian pilots. This is him displaying. At the end of the search, they found 52 sites to rescue the people. Today, government doesn't care about the people after their buildings are displayed or demolished by a government project. A very important lesson can be learnt from this. Nkrumah told the officials not to put all the people together because they had different chiefs and customs.
One had to look at the social background to see whether they would work together. The chieftaincy issues came in.
They might be having separate culture, which might not bring harmony. So they had to study their social backgrounds before grouping them into new villages.
They acquired land around the village so that they can continue with their livelihood as before.
So the people you see here were government officials and some white men working for the government. They were helping the local people to grow new crops at their new given lands when their old lands were displaced by the Akosombo Dam project. The government actually had an unusual love for their people, as it then.
Back at the construction site, work was progressing steadily. Equipment and machinery for the construction work had been sourced from across the world using the best equipment and technology available at the time.
Dr. Nkrumah appointed Ontario Hydro to give us the initial staff to cover the construction period, and then later on also the actual commissioning and running of the plant. And one of the, apart from them supervising,
we were having about 37 machines. The machine can crush the tree down and walk on it, and you find the tree no more.
I would say that our people responded very well. I suspect that perhaps we were paid a little more than other people in the country. In other words, the wage levels were also such as to make VRA a popular place. Everybody wanted to come to VRA.
Maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you don't come home. You work day and night, day and night.
Drive caterpillars, graders, they were staying at the greatest quarters. All Ghanaians.
Our training was classroom in the evenings and on the job during the day.
But I must say that Ghanaians worked extremely hard during construction, whether at Akosombo or on the resettlement front. People just worked for as long as they had a job to do. No one asked questions about overtimes and whatnot. We didn't have any of such problems.
So, that aspect of working with the contractor was very useful. Yes, we saw everything being installed and we took part.
The Volta River hydroelectric dam at Akosombo was a gravity rockfill type. The reason for this type of dam was a practical one, as the materials were readily available. The rocks in the Akosombo Gorge were very hard and could be broken into workable boulders. Additionally, there was plenty of lighter rocky material for compacting purposes and unlimited quantity of river sand and adequate deposits of good clay for the impervious dam core.
So the river was diverted through a tunnel, which is on the east side of the east side of the dam, and the water was diverted through there, and then the spillways, and then the dam, was constructed, including what we call the coffer dam, because we had this area there too, which was slightly lower than the highest level of the lake. So.
I was part of the people that went under the dam. When they finished the scaffolding, we went under the river to wash the riverbed. They hung buckets on the road from either side of the hills, which we used in fetching water from the riverbed. When we finished drawing the water, we noticed a leakage, so we made small holes in the riverbed and fixed 2 water pump machines to drain the water out.
But when they fetch clay and water from marine, we have very strong powered water hose. We blow it several times to make clean before they allow you to come and pour it down. When they put the gravels and the sand, they covered the first footing with tarpaulin throughout and put in heavy machines for about 1 week. So eventually you saw that the work was progressing, little by little.
I remember some people who would come there and say, there's no way you Ghanaians can run this plant. It's too big for you. You just don't have the experience.
As with every project of such scale, regardless of the strict health and safety precautions put in place to prevent any fatalities, there are bound to be some form of incidents. Unfortunately, the Volta River project was no different.
We had a very bad explosion there, which killed a lot of people. Boom. If you go to the Catholic church up on the hill, you'll see all the names.
'15th of February, there was a disaster. That was about the time they had almost completed the dam and they were about to commission it. There was a blast and about 10 people died on that day.
The resilience and hard work of the construction workers, consultants and VRA, with the strong support from government, bore fruits on the 22nd of January 1966. 2 years ahead of schedule, the Akosombo hydroelectric project was ready to be commissioned. The opening ceremony attracted a great number of high-profile personalities from across the world.
And as usual, like with all these inauguration ceremonies, we brought all the important people there, including Nkrumah himself, and all the speeches and so on. We went through all that. It was a typical inauguration ceremony. And the plant was officially declared finished.
Ghana is a small but very dynamic, independent African state. We are trying to reconstruct our economy and to build a new, free, and equal society. To do this, we must attain control of our own economic and political destinies. Only thus can we create higher living standards for our people and free them from the legacies and hazards of a colonial past and from the encroachments of neo-colonialism.
Neo-colonialism meaning American investment in Africa. His audience knew it was a bad thing. Osagefo had just published a book attacking it. Odd, though, there was American investment in this dam. A further irony, it was that book which made it necessary for Mrs. Nkrumah to open the dam instead of Mrs. Kennedy, as Dr. Nkrumah had hoped. The American government were annoyed by the book and advised Mrs. Kennedy not to go. The fiction that she'd be there was maintained till the last moment, but in the end it was Mrs. Nkrumah who unveiled a plaque marked, "Unveiled by Mrs. Jacqueline Kennedy." With Mr. Kaiser, engineering and aluminium king, the president then came forward to switch on lights. Mr. Kaiser had spoken, but hadn't explained the other major oddity of the Volta scheme, that the power is to be used to smelt processed bauxite into aluminium, and the processed bauxite is being imported, although Ghana runs over with raw bauxite. But when the lights came on, and the fireworks, these oddities were forgotten in the glow.
Let me add these to what you have just watched. Number 1, the project was to be completed in 1968, but it was completed in 1966. That was the first time a world leader had completed a project 2 years before the proposed date of completion. Number 2, the people who were affected by the project were to be given permanent settlement in 1969, but unfortunately, Nkrumah was overthrown before that date. Till now, no government has been able to solve the settlement issue, and the people in Volta region continue to suffer just because Nkrumah was overthrown. Number 3, the completed dam was only the first phase. The second phase was the irrigation, tourism, and industrial process of the artificial lake. But because Nkrumah was overthrown, it came to an end. Even though Nkrumah's dream to make Ghana the greatest country in the world was shattered, but the world will continue to remember the sacrifice he made to make Ghana and Africa great.